You wake up one morning and something feels fundamentally different. The coffee tastes like water. The news sounds like distant noise. Your reflection in the mirror looks like a stranger wearing your face. You go through the motions of another day, but there's this growing sensation that everything around you is somehow hollow, like you're living in a beautiful but empty theater where everyone is playing their parts, but the script has lost all meaning. You've worked for years toward goals that suddenly feel like mirages, pursued dreams that now seem like elaborate illusions, and the life you've built feels like a house of cards that could collapse with the slightest breath of wind. This isn't depression, though it might feel similar. This isn't a midlife crisis, though the timing might suggest it. This is something much deeper and more profound. The moment when you realize that everything you've been told is real might actually be nothing more than an elaborate construction, a collective agreement to pretend that temporary things are permanent, that meaningless routines have cosmic significance, and that the endless repetition of daily life is somehow leading you somewhere important. What you're experiencing has a name, and it's been understood by spiritual traditions for thousands of years. The great historian of religions Mircea Eliade called this the awakening from profane time into the possibility of sacred time. You see, most of us spend our entire lives trapped in what Eliade termed linear, homogeneous time, where one day follows another in an endless chain of routine, where we measure our lives by deadlines and appointments, birthdays and anniversaries, promotions and retirements, as if these arbitrary markers actually meant something in the cosmic scheme of existence. We live as if time is a straight line leading from birth to death, and we fill that line with activities and achievements that we desperately hope will add up to something meaningful. But what happens when you suddenly realize that this entire framework is just a shared hallucination, a collective agreement to participate in a game where the rules were made up by people who were just as lost and confused as you are now? This moment of recognition, this sudden seeing through the veil of ordinary existence, is what mystics and sages have called awakening, and it's often the most disorienting experience a human being can have. One day you're completely absorbed in your career, your relationships, your plans for the future, and the next day it all seems like an elaborate performance you've been unconsciously giving for an audience that doesn't really exist. The promotion you've been working toward suddenly seems meaningless, the mortgage you've been paying feels like voluntary slavery, and the social roles you've been playing feel like costumes that no longer fit. Everything that seemed solid and real reveals itself to be as insubstantial as morning mist, and you're left standing in the middle of your life wondering what, if anything, is actually true. Eliade understood that this crisis is not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. Not the end of meaning, but the beginning of a different kind of meaning altogether. He saw that human beings have always lived in two different modes of time. Profane time, which is the ordinary, everyday experience of duration, where things happen in sequence and everything is moving toward decay and death. And sacred time, which is cyclical, eternal, and connected to something much larger than our individual existence. In sacred time, we don't experience life as a linear progression from birth to death, but as participation in eternal patterns that connect us to the divine source of all existence. The ancient peoples understood this instinctively, which is why their lives were organized around rituals and ceremonies that regularly transported them out of ordinary time and into communion with the sacred. Think about the last time you lost yourself completely in something beautiful. The last time you were so absorbed in a moment that you forgot about your past and your future and existed purely in the present. Maybe it was watching a sunset that seemed to last forever, or listening to music that transported you to another dimension, or holding someone you love so completely that the boundaries between self and other dissolved entirely. In those moments, you weren't thinking about your career or your problems or your plans for tomorrow. You weren't measuring time or calculating outcomes or wondering what other people thought about you. You were simply present, fully alive, connected to something much larger than your individual concerns. This is what Eliade called sacred time, and it's the natural state of human consciousness when we're not trapped in the illusion that ordinary, everyday experience is all there is. The tragedy of modern life is that we've almost completely forgotten how to access sacred time. We've built a civilization that's entirely organized around profane time, around productivity and efficiency and progress, and we've convinced ourselves that this is the only real way to live. We measure our worth by how much we accomplish in a day, how much money we make in a year, how many goals we achieve in a lifetime, as if the quantity of our activities could somehow add up to quality of being. We've turned life into a race against time instead of a dance with eternity. And then we wonder why so many people feel empty and disconnected and desperately searching for something they can't even name. But here's what Eliade discovered in his decades of studying religious traditions from around the world. The feeling that nothing is real is actually the beginning of wisdom, not the end of hope. When you realize that the everyday world is largely a construction, a set of agreements and assumptions that we've inherited from previous generations who were just trying to make sense of existence, you're not losing your mind, you're finding it. You're beginning to see through the veil of consensus reality to something much more profound and mysterious underneath. The ancient Greeks called this the difference between the world of appearances and the world of eternal forms. The Hindus call it the distinction between Maya, the world of illusion, and Brahman, ultimate reality. Christians speak of the difference between the kingdom of this world and the kingdom of heaven. What they're all pointing to is the same recognition that what we call ordinary reality is actually just one layer of a much deeper, more complex, and infinitely more meaningful existence. You know what touches me most when I read your messages? It's realizing that we're not alone in this search. If you're listening to me now and feel that emptiness, that sensation that something important is missing in your life, I want you to know that I understand exactly what you're going through. There were moments when I also felt completely disconnected from the sacred, lost in the midst of a routine that seemed to suck all the magic out of existence. That's why I want to ask you a very direct question. What was the last moment you felt there was something greater than yourself present in your life? It could have been contemplating a sunset, listening to music, or simply in an instant of silence. If you feel comfortable, write in the comments, "I miss the sacred in my daily life," and briefly tell when that last moment was. Your story might be exactly what someone needs to read today to feel less alone in this journey. And I promise I'll read each comment with the care it deserves. The realization that nothing was ever real in the way you thought it was is not a cause for despair, but an invitation to discover what is actually real. Eliade called this the myth of eternal return, the understanding that true reality is not found in the linear progression of historical time, but in our ability to reconnect with the eternal patterns that give life meaning. These patterns are not abstract philosophical concepts, but lived experiences that we can access through ritual, meditation, art, love, and any activity that transports us beyond the narrow confines of our individual ego and connects us to the larger rhythms of existence. When ancient peoples performed their seasonal ceremonies, when they told their creation myths, when they built their sacred spaces, they weren't engaging in primitive superstition, but in sophisticated technologies for accessing sacred time. They understood that human beings need regular connection to the eternal, to the source from which all temporary forms emerge and to which they eventually return. They knew that without this connection, life becomes merely a series of random events leading nowhere, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. But with this connection, even the most ordinary activities become sacred. Even the simplest moments become doorways to the infinite. Even the most challenging experiences become opportunities for growth and transformation. This is why the feeling that nothing was ever real can be the beginning of the most real life you've ever lived. When you see through the illusion that temporary things are permanent, you become available to discover what is actually eternal. When you realize that social roles and cultural expectations are just costumes we wear, you become free to discover who you really are underneath all the masks. When you understand that the endless pursuit of external achievements is ultimately futile, you become available to discover the joy and fulfillment that come from simply being alive, simply being present, simply being connected to the miracle of existence itself. Eliade observed that in traditional societies, people regularly participated in rituals that symbolically returned them to the beginning of time, to the moment of creation when everything was fresh and new and full of infinite possibility. These weren't historical reenactments, but mystical participations in eternal realities that are always available, always present, always ready to break through the veil of ordinary consciousness and reveal the sacred dimension that underlies all existence. The power of these rituals wasn't in their external forms, but in their ability to transport participants out of linear time and into the eternal now, where all healing happens, all creativity emerges, and all genuine love is born. You don't need to join an ancient tradition or learn elaborate ceremonial practices to access this dimension of reality. Every moment offers you the opportunity to step out of profane time and into sacred time, to move beyond the illusion that you are a separate individual struggling to survive in a hostile universe, and recognize yourself as an expression of the same creative intelligence that moves the stars and grows the flowers, and beats your heart without any effort on your part. The key is learning to recognize these opportunities, and having the courage to step through them when they appear. Think about what happens when you're completely absorbed in creating something beautiful, whether it's a painting or a poem or a garden or a meal prepared with love. Time seems to stop, or rather, you step out of clock time and into a different kind of time altogether. Hours can pass like minutes, or minutes can feel like hours, because you're no longer measuring experience against external standards, but living from an internal rhythm that connects you to something much larger than your individual concerns. This is sacred time, and it's available to you whenever you engage with life from love rather than fear, from presence rather than anxiety, from creativity rather than reactivity. The same thing happens when you're in the presence of great beauty, whether it's a magnificent landscape or a piece of music that moves you to tears, or the face of someone you love illuminated by understanding. In those moments, all your problems and worries and plans for the future fade into the background, and you exist purely in the eternal present where everything is perfect exactly as it is. You realize that you don't need to fix anything or achieve anything or become anyone other than who you already are, because who you already are is an irreplaceable expression of the same creative force that manifests as everything in the universe. This understanding transforms everything, not by changing the external circumstances of your life, but by changing your relationship to those circumstances. You still have to pay bills and go to work and deal with difficult people and navigate the challenges of living in a human body, but you no longer believe that these activities define who you are or determine your worth. They become like weather patterns, temporary phenomena that arise and pass away within the vast space of your eternal being. You can engage with them fully without being consumed by them, participate in the world of forms without forgetting the formless reality from which all forms emerge. Consider how different your experience becomes when you understand that the anxiety you feel about the future is not a reflection of actual danger, but simply the mind's habitual pattern of projecting into an imaginary tomorrow. When you realize that your worth is not determined by your productivity or your achievements, but by your very existence as a conscious being, the pressure to constantly prove yourself begins to dissolve. The meetings you attend, the emails you answer, the tasks you complete, all become opportunities to practice presence rather than obstacles to your happiness. You begin to see that every interaction is a chance to offer kindness. Every challenge is an invitation to deepen your wisdom. Every moment of difficulty is a doorway to greater compassion. Eliade discovered that in traditional cultures, people understood instinctively that ordinary activities could become sacred through the quality of attention they brought to them. The baker who kneaded bread with reverence was performing a holy act, connecting the grain that grew in sacred earth to the people who would be nourished by it. The mother who sang lullabies to her children was participating in the eternal rhythm of love, passing from one generation to another. The farmer who planted seeds with gratitude was collaborating with the mysterious forces that transform death into life, darkness into light, potential into manifestation. These people didn't need to escape from their daily lives to find the sacred because they knew how to recognize the sacred dimension that was always present within their daily lives. They understood that washing dishes could be a meditation, that walking could be a prayer, that eating could be a communion with the earth and sky and rain and sun that had conspired to create their food. They lived in what Eliade called the eternal present, where every moment was connected to the first moment of creation, and every action was a reenactment of the divine creativity that continuously brings the world into being. Modern life has largely forgotten this wisdom, but it hasn't disappeared entirely. You can still find traces of it in the way artists lose themselves in their work, in the way lovers forget time when they're gazing into each other's eyes, in the way children become completely absorbed in play, in the way gardeners find peace in tending their plants, in the way cooks pour love into their recipes, in the way musicians disappear into their melodies. These are all examples of what Eliade would recognize as hierophanies, manifestations of the sacred within the ordinary world. The word hierophany comes from the Greek words hieros, meaning sacred, and phanion, meaning to show or reveal. A hierophany is any object, place, person, or event that reveals the sacred dimension of reality. For ancient peoples, certain mountains were hierophanies because they seemed to touch the sky. Certain trees were hierophanies because they connected earth and heaven. Certain animals were hierophanies because they embodied particular divine qualities. But Eliade understood that the capacity for hierophany is not limited to special objects or places, but is a potential that exists everywhere, waiting to be recognized by eyes that have learned to see. When you're walking down a busy street and suddenly notice how the light falls through the leaves of a tree, creating patterns of shadow and illumination that take your breath away, you're experiencing a hierophany. When you're having an ordinary conversation with a friend and suddenly feel the profound mystery of communication, the miracle that two conscious beings can share their inner worlds through symbols and sounds, you're witnessing a manifestation of the sacred. When you're doing something as simple as drinking water and suddenly become aware of the extraordinary fact that this liquid is sustaining every cell in your body, connecting you to every river and ocean and cloud on earth, you're participating in a hierophany. The difference between living in profane time and living in sacred time is not a matter of changing what you do, but changing how you pay attention to what you do. It's the difference between eating a meal while distracted by television or conversation and eating a meal with full awareness of the colors and textures and flavors, with gratitude for the hands that prepared it, and the earth that grew it, and the sun that made it possible. It's the difference between walking from one place to another while lost in thought about your problems, and walking with awareness of the miracle that your legs are carrying you, that your lungs are breathing air, that your eyes are receiving light, and your brain is translating that light into the experience of a world full of beauty and wonder. This shift in attention is what the mystics have always called awakening, and it's available to you right now, not as a future achievement, but as a present possibility. You don't need to wait until you've meditated for years, or read countless spiritual books, or found the perfect teacher. You can begin right now with whatever you're doing, wherever you are, by simply bringing the quality of attention that recognizes the sacred dimension that's always present, but usually overlooked. Eliade observed that the longing to return to sacred time is not just a spiritual aspiration, but a fundamental human need, as essential to our well-being as food and water and shelter. When people lose connection to the sacred dimension of existence, they inevitably begin to feel empty and meaningless and desperately searching for something they can't name. They might try to fill this emptiness with achievements or possessions or experiences, but none of these can satisfy the deep hunger for meaning that can only be fed through reconnection with the source of all meaning. The great secret that Eliade discovered is that the myth of eternal return is not just an ancient belief system, but a lived reality that's available to us right now. Every moment offers us the opportunity to die to who we think we are and be reborn as who we actually are. Every breath offers us the chance to release the accumulated weight of our personal history and start fresh with infinite possibility. Every encounter with beauty or love or truth offers us a doorway back to the Garden of Eden, back to the beginning of time when everything was new and perfect and full of wonder. This concept of eternal return is perhaps one of Eliade's most profound insights into the nature of spiritual life. He recognized that linear time, the time of clocks and calendars and historical progression, is only one way of experiencing temporality, and that it's actually a rather impoverished way compared to the cyclical time that our ancestors understood. In cyclical time, every ending is also a beginning. Every death is also a birth. Every moment contains within it the seeds of renewal and transformation. Think about the way nature demonstrates this eternal return in every season. Spring doesn't just follow winter chronologically. It emerges from winter, transforms winter, redeems winter, by revealing that what appeared to be death was actually gestation, that what seemed like ending was actually preparation for beginning. The tree that looks dead in January is not actually dead but dormant, gathering energy for the explosion of life that will manifest in April. The gardener who understands this doesn't mourn the death of last year's flowers but celebrates it, knowing that their decomposition is feeding the soil that will nourish next year's blooms. Human consciousness has this same capacity for eternal return, this same ability to find renewal and rebirth in what appears to be endings and failures and losses. But we've lost touch with this capacity because we've been trained to think of life as a straight line from birth to death, with success measured by how much we can accumulate along the way. We've forgotten that consciousness is naturally cyclical, that it goes through seasons of expansion and contraction, creativity and rest, engagement and withdrawal, and that each of these seasons is necessary for the full expression of our human potential. When you begin to live according to the rhythm of eternal return, You stop trying to hold on to the good times and stop trying to escape from the difficult times, because you understand that both are temporary phases in an eternal cycle that's always moving toward greater wholeness and deeper understanding. You learn to surrender to the natural rhythm of your own being, to honor your need for both activity and rest, both solitude and community, both giving and receiving, both learning and forgetting. This surrender is not passive resignation, but active participation in the mystery of existence. You begin to see your life not as something you need to control or manage or optimize, but as something you get to dance with, something that's dancing with you, something that knows what it's doing even when you don't understand the steps. You develop trust in the process of life itself, confidence that whatever is happening is somehow serving your highest good, even when it doesn't feel that way. Faith that the intelligence that created the stars and the flowers and the intricate ecosystem of your own body is also guiding your path through the seeming chaos of modern existence. But this return to paradise is not a regression to a childish state of consciousness, but a progression to a mature understanding that embraces both the relative reality of everyday life and the absolute reality of our eternal nature. We don't escape from the world, but see through it to the sacred dimension that was always there, hidden in plain sight. We don't reject our human experience, but recognize it as a vehicle for divine expression, a temporary form through which the infinite expresses itself in time and space. This integration of human and divine, temporal and eternal, relative and absolute is what Eliade saw as the goal of religious life, and it's what distinguishes mature spirituality from spiritual escapism. The person who has learned to live in sacred time doesn't reject their responsibilities or abandon their relationships or escape to a monastery, though they might choose any of these paths, if that's where their calling leads them. Rather, they learn to find the eternal within the temporal, the sacred within the secular, the divine within the human. They might continue working in the same job, but they approach their work as a form of service, rather than just a way to earn money. They might continue living with the same people, but they see their relationships as opportunities for mutual awakening rather than just sources of comfort or security. They might continue engaging with the same activities, but they bring to these activities a quality of presence and appreciation that transforms everything from routine into ritual, from obligation into offering, from necessity into gift. The transformation is subtle but profound, like the difference between listening to music as background noise while you do something else, and listening to music with your full attention, allowing every note and rhythm and harmony to penetrate your being. The music is the same, but your experience of the music is completely different. Life is the same, but your experience of life is completely different. The world is the same, but your relationship to the world is completely different. Eliade understood that this transformation doesn't happen through willpower or positive thinking, or even through spiritual practices, though all of these can be helpful. It happens through what he called anamnesis, which is a Greek word that means remembering or recollection. Specifically, it means remembering something that you had forgotten you knew, recognizing something that was always true, but had been covered over by layers of conditioning and distraction and cultural programming. When you experience anamnesis, you don't learn something new so much as you remember something ancient, something that's been calling to you from the depths of your being your entire life. You recognize that the longing you've always felt, the sense that there must be something more to existence than what you've been told, the intuition that you're here for some purpose greater than just survival and reproduction, is not wishful thinking but accurate perception of your true nature and your true calling. This recognition often comes in moments of crisis, when the normal structures of your life are disrupted and you're forced to question assumptions you've never questioned before. It can come through loss, when something or someone important to you is taken away and you're left facing the fragility and impermanence of everything you thought was solid. It can come through beauty, when you encounter something so magnificent that it shatters your ordinary categories and opens you to dimensions of reality you hadn't known existed. It can come through love, when you connect with another being so deeply that the boundaries of your separate self temporarily dissolve and you remember your fundamental interconnectedness with all of life. When you truly understand this, the feeling that nothing was ever real transforms into the recognition that everything is more real than you ever imagined. The coffee you drink in the morning becomes a communion with the earth that grew the beans and the sun that ripened them, and the rain that nourished them. The work you do becomes an offering, a way of contributing your unique gifts to the ongoing creation of the world. The people you meet become fellow travelers on the path of awakening, each one reflecting back to you some aspect of your own divine nature. This doesn't happen through belief or wishful thinking, but through practice, through learning to see with the eyes of the heart rather than just the eyes of the mind. It happens through cultivating what Eliade called homo religiosus, the religious human being who recognizes that every moment is sacred, every place is holy, and every experience is an opportunity to commune with the mystery that is both the source and destination of all existence. The practical implications of this understanding are profound and immediate. Instead of measuring your life by external achievements, you begin to measure it by the depth of your presence, the quality of your attention, the degree to which you're able to love without condition and serve without expectation of reward. Instead of trying to escape from difficult emotions or challenging circumstances, you begin to see them as invitations to deepen your compassion and expand your understanding. Instead of seeking happiness in the future or dwelling on regrets from the past, you begin to discover the inexhaustible joy that's available right here, right now, in this very moment. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't mean that you never feel confused or sad or frustrated again. What it means is that you stop identifying with these temporary states and start recognizing them as weather patterns in the sky of your awareness. You can feel anger without becoming an angry person, experience fear without being consumed by it, go through periods of doubt without losing faith in the fundamental goodness of existence. You develop what the traditions call equanimity, the ability to remain centered and peaceful regardless of external circumstances. Not because you don't care about what happens, but because you understand that who you really are is much larger than anything that can happen to you. If this resonates with something deep inside you, if something in you recognizes that there might be more to existence than the endless cycle of desire and frustration that characterizes most human life, then you're ready to begin the journey from profane time back to sacred time, from the illusion of separation back to the reality of connection, from the fear that you're not enough back to the understanding that you're an irreplaceable part of the infinite mystery that manifests as everything in the universe. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you recognizes that there's a different path, a deeper way to understand your own spiritual journey. I know what it's like to feel lost amid so much noise of the modern world, seeking answers that always seem to slip through your fingers. That's why I created this space, this refuge where we can explore together the ancient wisdom that still pulses alive in our hearts. When you subscribe to this channel, you're not just clicking a button, you're joining a community of people who, like you, feel that life has deeper layers waiting to be discovered. Here you'll find not just knowledge, but genuine embrace for your thirst for meaning. Subscribe now and be part of this journey of rediscovering the sacred in everyday life. Your soul deserves this gift. The path begins with the recognition that what you thought was real was just the surface layer of a much deeper reality, and that what you thought was impossible, the direct experience of the sacred in everyday life, is actually the most natural thing in the world. It's your birthright, your deepest nature, the truth of who you've always been underneath all the stories and roles and identities you've accumulated along the way. The realization that nothing was ever real as you thought it was is not the end of the story, but the beginning of the real story, the one that starts not with birth and doesn't end with death, the one where you discover that you are both the author and the main character in a cosmic drama that's been unfolding for eternity and will continue to unfold for eternity, and that your part in this drama is absolutely essential, completely unique, and infinitely precious. This understanding changes everything while changing nothing, because the transformation happens not in the external world, but in your perception of the external world. The same life that felt meaningless and hollow yesterday can feel sacred and full of purpose today, not because anything has changed outside you, but because everything has changed inside you. You realize that you were never actually trapped in profane time, but only believed you were, and that sacred time has been available to you all along, waiting patiently for you to remember how to access it, waiting lovingly for you to come home to who you really are.